Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our long-running series, the Unported playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today I have one of my favorites of those favorites, and that's Cool Riders from Sega. Not only is this a very unique and awesome racing game, which feels like a pseudo-sequel to Outrunners, it also has a really interesting hardware and technical story behind it, which I will tell you guys throughout the video. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But if you've ever played Outrun or Outrunners and you haven't played Cool Riders, you 100% owe it to yourself to play this game. Because what is here is absolute Sega racing perfection. This is a very rare game, and that is for one specific reason. I read a lot about how this game is a Sega System 32 game. That is not true. This is running on the Sega H1 board, and this is the only arcade game ever to use that hardware. Technically there's a second game, it's called Aqua Rider, and it's a coin redemption game. You know, you put the coin in, and the coin pushes back out. It's not really an arcade game, so this is technically the only quote-unquote capital G game for the hardware. And it uses the Hitachi SH2 as well as the SH1, so it's similar-ish in hardware to the 32X and the Sega Saturn. And this is the last sprite scaling hardware-based arcade game that Sega ever put out. So it is rare, it's kind of hard to deal with if you actually get an original board because you gotta set up the driving controls. But if you want to buy one and you see one for a good price, then jump on it, and if you don't want it, let me know. But outside of that fun little technical history, let's talk about the game itself. It is absolute racing perfection as far as I'm concerned. I love all racing games, but I prefer arcade racing games much more than the Gran Turismos out there that are a little bit more sim-based. What is on offer here with Cool Riders is exactly what I want an arcade game to be. It is quick, it's flashy, it runs so fast, the controls are incredible. If you hit something, it's your own fault. If you're racing well and you win, you know it's because you were talented, not because the game let you win. It's everything that you want an arcade racing game to be, and if you know Sega and you know arcade racing games, you know that they were, and for the most part in arcades still are, the kings of that genre. I absolutely love what this game is doing graphically as well. It uses the same digitized graphics as something like Mortal Kombat, where these are actual real people that have been digitized into sprites. And each course has different areas to go to, just like Outrun and Outrunners. So this game has a ton of replayability as well. To actually see everything on offer is going to take you basically, I think, like 20 to 25 races. And each level is unique. You'll see that we started in a city, now we're in the countryside. We were racing under sharks and waves. There is so much charm in this game. You will have a smile on your face the entire time you play it, or else your money back from me. And since you'll probably emulate it and you pay nothing, I owe you nothing if you don't like it. Just leave me a comment down below and tell me I was wrong, but I don't think you will. Because I would say this is as good as Outrun and Outrunners. This may be my favorite of the three games, and that might just be down to how weird and unique and charming it is. But just look at all these buildings and trees go by. This game is running at 60 frames a second, and the sense of speed and momentum is absolutely spectacular. You feel like you're absolutely flying through this game as fast as something like a fighter jet, and here going through Russia with all those tanks built up and all the different wreckage and architecture on the sides. Every level has a vibe to it, and I am there for all of that vibe. You'll see that I did take a few crashes, and as you get further into the game, those tunnels get a little bit more narrow, and your turns need to be a little bit more perfect to be able to actually get through them. But you'll see here, I've shown you basically the entire game from start to finish for the first level, but go ahead and listen to the soundtrack because it is absolutely spectacular. And I'll be back in 45 seconds, and I'll show you more Cool Riders. But enjoy! Just another classic Sega arcade soundtrack, and I absolutely love it. You'll see here that I lost 2 of the 5 stages. Winning all 5 can be quite difficult, but it is possible to do. And you'll see here, I don't understand what's going on with the story, but all the other people racing against me were arrested. Maybe racing is illegal in the world of Cool Riders. I don't know, it doesn't really explain it. But let's try a different character, and if you haven't noticed yet, There are not that many cuts in this video because everything is so interesting from start to finish. It's just easier for me to talk about how amazing this game is, how amazing it plays, and how amazing it looks versus cutting it to try to make it more interesting. Because now we're going to go a completely different direction. We're going to go downtown New York, and we're going to go to a completely different area of the map, and everything is going to change. You'll see they even have the Twin Towers in the background. Kind of strange to see those these days, but that's when this game was made. They still did exist. And we're going through downtown Manhattan here. Of course, it doesn't look exactly like New York because it is an arcade game using sprites, but the vibe that it's got going on is just absolutely spectacular, and I cannot overemphasize the sense of speed and momentum this game has. As we're going across bridges, as we're going near buildings, everything is just flying by in a blur. The Sega H1 board was probably Sega's best hardware as far as scaling sprites were concerned, and Sega was definitely the best in the arcade business at developing hardware that could push those sprites. Now, why didn't this get ported home? That's really confusing to me because this is basically running on kind of an amalgam of the 32X and the Sega Saturn hardware, so at least the code base for the CPU is extremely similar. My guess is just that Sega, along with PlayStation, during the 3D arms race just said that they wanted more 3D games on their platform and they didn't think people would enjoy this at home because it would have been, quote-unquote, an easy port to bring to Saturn. Now, porting anything's not that easy. I'm not an electrical engineer or a computer engineer, so for me to say something's easy, it would be probably easy for the people that know what they're doing. For somebody like me, it would be impossible. But this is a game that should have gotten a port. I talk about a lot of arcade games on this playlist, and a lot of the times there's a very easy reason why it didn't get ported home, but in this instance it was just because Sega probably decided that they didn't think their customer base wanted it on the Saturn, which is a huge bummer because I absolutely 100% wish I had a copy of Cool Riders on my Sega Saturn shelf. It would be one of my prized possessions. But at least it emulates well now. This was a game that for the longest time either didn't emulate at all or had a lot of different glitches, but in the intervening years it has gotten to the point where it's 100% playable and it's no longer lost to arcade game players because I have not seen a cabinet for this game in over 2 decades. I think the last time I saw it was in California in like 2004 or 2005 when I was in Los Angeles for work very briefly. I saw it at like this oceanside arcade near like, I don't even remember the name of the neighborhood. My wife used to work there. I'm not quite sure. But that's the last time I saw this cabinet. And that's a huge bummer to me because this is the type of cabinet, if I saw it for sale in Chicago or somewhere where I could drive with a truck and pick it up, this would 100% be in a storage unit near my house until I had a house big enough to put it on the floor because the cabinet is massive. But Cool Riders is worth every square foot that that cabinet would take up because this is Sega at the peak of 2D arcade development. They had been releasing super scaling hardware for a really long time, and the Sega System 32 was one of the best, but the H1 has better graphical capability, and this was Sega engineers and artists and designers having so much experience dealing with sprite scaling and putting one more sprite scaling game out into the world before they basically transitioned over to a full 3D environment with their games. And that means with all the experience and all the time that Sega had in the 2D arcade game, that this is one of, if not the absolute best 2D sprite scaling racing games that Sega ever made. This is just a special game. The controls are perfect, the graphical style is excellent, the soundtrack is amazing, it's fun, it's fast. This is a capital A, capital R arcade racing game. It is quintessential to the genre, and this is a genre that I absolutely love and wish we got more of because we don't get that many arcade racing games today, and apparently this guy's a Middle Eastern sheik. I did not know that when I started the game. I forgot that I knew that, and it just doesn't make any sense. But you can also just ride as a Dutch bike rider. This game has personality coming out both ends, and I love it for that. And if you've never somehow played this game, this is your homework assignment. You need to play it after this video is over. Download MAME, grab the ROM, play it, leave me a comment and tell me what you think. But if you have played this game before, of course leave me a comment as well. I love hearing your guys' feedback on what you think these games are like on your perspective. And if you do know of a Cool Riders cabinet somewhere out there in the US, leave me a comment as well, because a lot of times I say these cabinets seem extinct and someone comments and says, oh, it's at the arcade or my local bowling alley or my local laundromat around the corner. And I'd love to know that these cabinets still exist somewhere in the world. But yeah, that's Cool Riders, 100% a 10 out of 10 Sega arcade racing game. But I'll be back next Sunday with more Unported Arcade. I'll have videos throughout the week as well. The long play for this game will be up next Monday, but I will see you guys next time. Play this game. Bye-bye.